Wait. All right. Genesis 13. And Don and Elaine starting
Chapter 12.
1.
The call of Abram.
6.
The Lord had said to
Wait.
Abram, leave your
Wait a
native
minute.
country, your relatives, and your
Help.
father's family, and go to the
Whew, these mechanical things, they're not for me. Oh,
All righty.
So I have to put up with this all the time.
I know. Isn't you lucky? Keeps him on his toes.
So Adam and Lot is separating. So Adam left Egypt and traveled north into the Negev along with his wife and Lot and all that he owned, all the way, and all that they owned. Adam was very rich in livestock.
Abram. I think that's Abram.
Abram, how did he come up there? Abram was very rich in livestock, silver, and gold. From the Negev, they continued traveling by stages towards Bethel, and they pitched their tents between Bethel and Ai, where they had camped before.
This was the same place where Abram had built the altar and where he worshiped the Lord again. Lot, who was traveling with Abram and had also become very wealthy with flocks of sheep and goats, herds of cattle, and many tents. But the land could not support both Abram and Lot with all their flocks and herds living so close together.
All right. Go ahead, Sherry.
And there was a strife between the herdsmen of Abram's cattle and the herdsmen of Lot's cattle. And the Canaanite and the Perizzite dwelled then in the land. And Abram said unto Lot, let there be no strife, I pray thee, between me and thee, and between my herdsmen and thy herdsmen, for we be brethren. Is not the whole land before thee? Separate thyself, I pray thee, from me. If thou wilt take the left hand, then I will go to the right. Or if thou depart to the right hand, then I will go to the left.
All right. Todd and Sherry.
And Lot lifted his eyes and saw all the plain of Jordan, that it was well watered everywhere, before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, like the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt as you go towards Zoar. Then Lot chose for himself all the plain of the Jordan, and Lot journeyed east, and they separated from each other. Abram dwelt in the land of Canaan, and Lot dwelt in the cities of the plain, and pitched his tent even as far as Sodom.
But the men of Sodom were exceedingly wicked and sinful against the Lord. And the Lord said to Abram, after Lot had separated from him, lift up your eyes now and look from the place where you are northward, southward, eastward, and westward. For all the land which you see, I give to you and your descendants forever.
All right. Mom, can you finish it up, please?
And I will make your descendants as the dust of the earth, so that if a man could number the dust of the earth, then your descendants also could be numbered. Arise, walk in the land through its length and its width, for I give it to you. Then Abram moved his tent and went and dwelt by the terebinth trees of Mamre, which are in Hebron, and built an altar there to the Lord.
All right. Anything stand out in this chapter?
It looks like the flocks of both Abram and Lot were quite large, and the land couldn't support their feeding, so they must needed to separate.
It seems like too that though that wasn't Lot that was, no, it was the other one, Abram. I think they had a good attitude. It was kind of like not selfish to give him the choice, if I understood that right.
And even the first choice too.
Yeah.
Right, right. But this is the thing. They were about to get into Egypt. They're about to get into Canaan. Now, Canaan was promised to Abram.
Yes.
And here we see again Abram's passivity, because he was about to give Lot the choice, and Lot could have chosen to go to Canaan. And where would Abram go? But Lot didn't, which again could be, God intervening. It could be one of those things where, because this also is where you begin to see Lot's selfishness. I know Abram's unselfishness comes out, but Lot's selfishness also comes out. Now, Lot was an adopted kid. He became wealthy because of his uncle Abram. And he's the younger person. And so I think in the culture back then, it would have been a much better, it's more a respect thing to say, Uncle, you've done so much for me. I'll let you choose. And I don't know if Abram would have chosen where he was at if that was the case. Only because, again, I would think that Abram was choosing, or was always thinking that God was about to give him this land, because almost everything he says, especially even when he's about to die and he's about to bury Sarah, is that God promised me this land. And so that's where his mindset was. But it seems at this point he was willing to give it up. And I don't know how the story would have been different if Lot said, I'll take Canaan, you can go wherever you want. I wonder if God would have intervened just like he intervened with Hagar. I wonder if he would have said, this land is not promised to you, it's promised to Abraham.
I have a feeling that maybe because Abram seemed so trying to be so fair, that he probably would have made Lot more apt to lean towards taking the other. That's just, it's just an inner feeling.
Right.
God can do that. And just made it easier for his kindness to shine forth.
Right. Well, one of the things that really comes out is how beautiful the land towards the east is. You look at my version says it's like the garden of the Lord, or the beautiful land of Egypt. And quite honestly, I don't know if he was a difference if, he was looking at New Mexico versus Washington State. You know what I mean? I don't know if you guys been to New Mexico, but I know.
Pretty barren.
Right. And Washington State is always beautiful. I wonder if that was the thing, because I know today that place, Sodom is where Sodom is, or where we think Sodom is. It's all pretty bad. It's all desert place. But I guess there was a time when it was really beautiful. There was a time when, even Moses calls it the garden of the Lord, or it was like Egypt. Now, Egypt has its good and bad places as well, but it seems to me that, with that choice, Lot was like, I can be a lot wealthier in a very fertile land versus a land that is not as fertile. Because obviously the reason why the land couldn't accommodate both of them was because there wasn't enough grass, there wasn't enough trees. I would guess too, again, if I'm just going to go with today, I kind of went there the first time I was in Israel, and there was nothing much to see. That is not a place where, there's a lot of lush vegetation. But it might have been different during the time of Abraham. But with Lot, obviously he chose a place where he was going to get a lot more wealthier and where a lot more people were. I'm guessing Zoar, which is the place that Lot actually fled to after Sodom after Sodom was burned. I'm guessing was a happening place because a lot of people went there. It seemed to be a place that 7 kings were fighting for. That's kind of how it must have been really, really nice. Yes.
I think another thing I look at is Abraham's example of he wanted nothing. Not only was he unselfish, but he wanted nothing between him and Lot. Like, to not cause conflict. What he deserved, he could have said, this is what I deserve. This is what I'm going to get. But he wanted no conflict. And I think about that, like just in our associations with people and stuff, do we have that kind of spirit that, yeah, I might be do it, but okay. You can have it just to keep peace or.
Right. No, I totally get that. I do believe that people who are trusting in God have that attitude. Maybe it's because they kind of know that with God, they always have the advantage anyway. But you're right. The whole humility thing is really evident here.
Well, I think and God rewarded that too, because he basically said, as far as your eye can see, it's all yours. Everything is yours. And he said, hey, why don't you spend the next few months and just walk around your area, walk around what I've given to you at the end. He says, just, walk through its length and its width that I give you. So probably would have taken him months to go through the whole place. But I think God was rewarding him for his unselfishness and for his faithfulness.
Right. And since you brought that up, I think it would be good for us to kind of look at the pattern here. The first time God gave the promise to Abram was when he left Ur. And forgot what chapter that is. I think it's the last chapter. And so when God says, I want you to leave this place, he promised Abraham that he's gonna make him a nation, right? And then after he gets separated again from Lot here, he gives the covenant one more time. When he got separated from Ishmael, which I think is on later chapters, he gives the covenant again. And when he was about to when he passed the test of slaying Isaac, God gives the covenant one more time. What do you think about that pattern? What can we learn about that pattern? I know I'm giving you stuff ahead of time, but now you see a pattern happening. You will hear this covenant repeated, but it's also, I think it's also really important when it's repeated. And it seems to me it's repeated every time Abram has to give up something that's valuable to him. And at this point, what's valuable to him was family.
It probably is the promise that God gave Abraham, that he continues to guide him with that promise.
Right? So it's almost like Abraham is being affirmed. You're doing a good job, Abraham. Is that kind of what you're saying?
even though you maybe goofed up a little bit here,
Right,
I'm
right.
still guiding you.
Right, right. I know for me, it seems to me that the promise can only be given when we, in turn, give up something. Because this promise could have been given to a lot of other people. This covenant could have been given to a lot of other people. It's just Abraham was the only one who said, all right, I'll give it up. I'll give it up to obey you. I wonder how the stories would be different if Abraham says, no, I'm staying right here. I don't think I want to, that's too hard. And this is the thing, we see different examples in the Bible of people doing that. And they give up so many things. They actually gave up a lot more than they would have if they didn't. When you look at the disciples, I don't know how many other disciples left Jesus. All we know is, after he fed the 5,000, this is what he told the 12. Are you guys going to leave me as well? And Peter was like, where else are we going to go? But when Jesus says, come follow me, and he did that after the miracle of fish, the fish filling up the boat. I wonder, how many disciples would be outside the city gates or even inside, and they would go, man, alive, we missed out. We totally missed out, because when it got tough, we said, no, I'm not going to do it. Because it seems to me that for every journey that God for every plan that God has for us, there is a sacrifice that needs to be made. And I think God makes that sacrifice pretty clear. I know for me, it was really clear. And I know it's clear because I pretty much fought him over it. I argued with him over it. And I do think that God leads us in a journey. And then there comes a time when he says, all right, are you willing to take this step forward? And that step means you're going to give up something. And for Abram, the promise kept getting repeated after he decided to give it up. And so I believe that God kept giving him the promise because he was able to pass each test. He was able to take a step forward with each command that God gave him. What do you guys think of that?
Go ahead, Todd. Give it your all.
I was just gonna say, I agree. I would agree with that.
Okay.
Sure.
And the one last thing I want to bring out, because Lot decided to pick, I wonder, because it wasn't Lot and Abram who was fighting. It was their servants.
Yeah.
How hard would it have been for Lot to say, look, you guys, you're my servants, stop fighting. I wonder how the story would have been different as well if Lot said, I'm not leaving you, uncle. You're the one who has God's promise. But for whatever reason, he chose this land. Now, what's interesting is this, and we'll get to I forgot what chapter it's in. It's Lot when he got out of Sodom with his two daughters, decided to get him drunk, and they had sex with him, and because of that relationship, two nations rose: the Moabites and the Ammonites. And the Moabites and the Ammonites were Israel's biggest enemies. I don't know. I mean, when I look at that big picture, I'm like, you can't make this drama up. There is something behind all this. Is not something that this isn't. What is that again? This isn't by accident. I believe that there are forces behind this between God and Satan, that because Lot chose to go away from his uncle, that Satan took over, that somehow the fate of his life now is that he and his seed, his grandkids, are now going to be enemies of God's people. And again, I don't believe for 1 minute that, oh well, it's by accident. And so again, we talked a little bit about how the sins of the fathers go from the second, third, and fourth generation. When God said this, when he was giving the 10 Commandments, I believe there was already proof that when a person decides to not give their life to God, it doesn't just affect that person. It affects generations after him. That when a person says, look, I'm not going to obey God, or I'm going to choose a different side, then it affects their children and grandchildren from then on. However, the other side of the story, seems to me, is when a person chooses to obey God, it seems like no matter how many mistakes they make, somehow, God's promise still continues on. Again, for me, that can't be by accident. And what I'm learning from that is I'm sticking to God's side no matter what. I don't care how hard it is. I don't care how beautiful it looks like on the land of Zoar. I don't care how Sodom and Gomorrah looks like today. And obviously I'm talking metaphors. I'm sticking to where God is. Because it seems to me that generations after we die, our choice for God helps our kids and our grandkids. And no matter how many mistakes we make, and we will make mistakes, we are human. No matter how many mistakes we make, somehow our faith in God brings about blessings. So much more so than if we made the decision to say, no, I'm just going to go my own way. I'm going to do my own thing. That in itself has tremendous consequences. Any other comments or questions? All right, I'm going to press. Thank you for joining us at our prayer and Bible study session as we journey through the Bible one chapter at a time. We realize that you might have some questions or comments on the things that we discussed today. And if you do, please feel free to fill out the form below. Also, if you would like to have your own Bible, please fill out the form below and we will get back to you as soon as we possibly can. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope to see you next time at our prayer and Bible study session.